Adrian slammed the car door and tossed his keys to the security guard without even looking at him. Another ordinary day in the massive mansion where everyone seemed to exist only to serve him. Servants rushed around polishing marble floors and trimming the perfectly shaped hedges that lined the driveway. Inside the house, a quiet new face moved carefully through the hallway. Hello guys, if you are new to this channel, welcome to my channel where interesting stories of billionaire love and emotional stories are told. Don't forget to like this video, subscribe, share it with your friends, and drop your thoughts in the comment section below. That quiet new face belonged to Lina. She had arrived only that morning from a small village many miles away. Her aunt had arranged the job after hearing that the minister's family needed another house helper. Lina stepped into the mansion with nothing more than a small suitcase and a calm determination to work hard. Unlike the other workers who walked nervously around Adrian, Lina carried herself differently. She spoke gently, moved quietly, and focused on her duties with almost peaceful confidence. When Adrian first saw her in the kitchen, he stopped. "Who's the new girl?" he asked lazily, leaning against the door. One of the older cooks whispered, "Her name is Lina, sir. She just started today." Adrian smirked. He was used to attention. Every girl he met either admired him or tried desperately to impress him. After all, he was the son of a powerful government minister, surrounded by wealth, luxury cars, and influence. So naturally, he expected the same reaction from Lina. But Lina did something strange. She simply nodded politely and continued washing dishes. No smile. No nervous giggle. No attempt to flatter him. Adrian frowned slightly. Interesting. Over the next few days, Adrian made several attempts to draw her attention. He walked through the kitchen more often than necessary. Cracked sarcastic jokes, and even tried showing off by talking loudly about his expensive lifestyle. But Lina barely reacted. When he mocked her simple village accent one afternoon, she calmly replied, "Everyone comes from somewhere. Being humble is not a crime." Then she returned to her work. For the first time in his life, Adrian felt something unfamiliar. Embarrassment. At first, he turned the situation into a game. He teased her more, trying to provoke a reaction. But Lina remained steady. Polite, respectful, and distant. Strangely, her quiet strength began to irritate him. Then, slowly, it began to intrigue him. He started noticing things about her. How she stayed late to help the elderly cook carry heavy pots. How she greeted the gate guards kindly every morning. How every evening, just before sunset, she stepped outside briefly to whisper a quiet prayer. Lina treated everyone with the same respect, whether they were rich or poor. And that confused Adrian. No one had ever looked at him the way Lina did. Not with admiration. Not with fear. Just, normal. And the more she ignored him, the more he found himself watching her. Something about her calm presence unsettled him in a way his expensive cars and loud parties never could. What Adrian didn't realize was that this quiet maid from a small village had just begun to shake the foundation of the arrogant life he had always known. And someone else in the house was starting to notice. Adrian's mother. And she was not pleased. Adrian's mother had spent years protecting the reputation of their powerful family. As the wife of a respected government minister, she believed every action inside the mansion reflected on their social status. Every dinner guest, every worker, every rumor in the city mattered to her. So when she began noticing her son wandering through the kitchen more often than usual, she immediately became suspicious. At first, she watched quietly. One afternoon she stood at the top of the staircase and saw Adrian leaning casually against the kitchen doorway while Lina prepared vegetables at the counter. He was saying something playful, clearly trying to get her attention. But Lina only nodded briefly and continued working. Adrian's mother narrowed her eyes. Later that evening, she called one of the house staff into her sitting room. "Tell me about the new maid," she asked coldly. The worker hesitated. Her name is Lina, madam. She is hardworking and very respectful. That's not what I asked, the woman replied sharply. Why does my son keep talking to her? The worker lowered her eyes and said nothing. That silence was enough to confirm her fear. The next morning, Adrian's mother walked into the kitchen unannounced. The entire room immediately fell quiet. Lina stood near the sink washing dishes when the older woman's voice cut through the room like a knife. You, she said. Lina turned politely. Yes, madam. Come with me. They stepped into the empty hallway where sunlight poured through the tall windows. Adrian's mother folded her arms and looked Lina up and down. You may think you're clever, she said slowly, but girls like you should remember their place. Lina blinked in confusion. Madam? Don't pretend you don't understand, the woman continued sharply. My son belongs to a family of influence and honor. I will not allow a village maid to create a scandal in this house. Lina remained calm. I have never tried to create any scandal, she replied gently. I only came here to work. The answer irritated the older woman even more. Then stay away from him, she snapped. If I see you speaking to Adrian again, you will regret it. Lina lowered her head respectfully. I understand. But rumors move quickly in big houses. A few days later, Adrian's mother overheard a guard joking that the young master seemed interested in the quiet maid. That was the final straw. That evening she summoned Lina again. This arrangement is no longer necessary, she announced coldly. You will leave this house tonight. Lina's eyes widened slightly. Madam, have I done something wrong? Yes, the woman replied firmly. You forgot your position. There was no argument. Lina packed her small suitcase quietly. Some of the older workers hugged her before she left, whispering words of encouragement. But Lina didn't cry. She simply walked out of the giant iron gate with her dignity intact. Inside the mansion, Adrian returned home later that night expecting to see her in the kitchen. Instead, the room felt strangely empty. Where is Lina? He asked casually. One of the workers hesitated before answering. Madam dismissed her this evening. Adrian froze. Something inside him sank in a way he didn't understand yet. The house suddenly felt much bigger, and much quieter. And for the first time in his arrogant life, Adrian began to realize that losing someone could hurt far more than he ever expected. The next morning, Adrian walked into the kitchen earlier than usual. For a moment he expected to see Lina standing by the sink, calmly preparing breakfast like she always did. But the space where she normally stood was empty. The room felt strangely silent, as if something important had disappeared overnight. He turned to one of the cooks. Did she really leave? The cook nodded carefully. Yes, sir. Madam told her to go. Adrian said nothing. He simply walked out of the kitchen. At first he told himself it didn't matter. After all, Lina was just another worker. People came and went in the mansion all the time. But as the days passed, something inside him began to shift. The mansion suddenly felt colder. The cheerful greetings from the guards no longer made him smile. His usual parties with friends felt boring. Even the expensive cars in the garage didn't excite him the way they once had. Everywhere he looked, he noticed reminders of Lina. The chair she used while peeling vegetables. The small prayer spot in the garden where she stood every evening. The quiet kindness she showed to everyone. And for the first time, Adrian began to feel something heavy pressing on his heart. Regret. He realized he had spent weeks mocking someone who had never done anything wrong to him. Soon his mood began to change. He stopped attending social gatherings. He stayed inside his room for long hours. Sometimes he wandered through the house late at night, restless and unable to sleep. His mother assumed it was just another phase. But his father noticed something deeper. The minister had always been a calm and observant man. One evening he sat beside his son in the living room. "You look troubled," he said quietly. Adrian stared at the floor for a long moment. "There was a girl who worked here," he finally said. His father nodded slowly. "Lina." Adrian looked surprised. "You know." "I know more than you think," the older man replied gently. Adrian rubbed his face with frustration. "She didn't care about money, or status," he said. "She treated everyone the same. And I treated her like she was nothing." His father remained silent, letting the confession continue. "I can't stop thinking about her," Adrian admitted quietly. The minister leaned back thoughtfully. "Then perhaps the problem is not that she left," he said. "Perhaps the problem is that you never truly understood her value until she was gone." Those words stayed in Adrian's mind for the rest of the night. The next morning, his father made a quiet decision. He asked one of the staff members where Lina had come from. After several phone calls and a bit of searching, they found a small neighborhood on the outskirts of the city where Lina had returned to help her struggling family. The minister put on his coat and prepared to leave. "Where are you going?" Adrian asked. His father smiled slightly. "To find the person who may be the only one capable of healing your heart. And somewhere in a small, modest home far from the luxury of the mansion, Lina was living quietly again, unaware that the powerful family she had left behind was about to return to her life in the most unexpected way. The neighborhood where Lina lived was simple and quiet, far from the polished streets of the wealthy district. Small houses stood close together, children played in dusty alleys, and neighbors greeted each other like family. When the minister's black car slowly drove into the area, people stopped to stare. Inside the car, Adrian sat nervously beside his father. They finally stopped in front of a modest home with a small garden growing in old paint buckets. Lina was outside watering the plants. When she looked up and saw the familiar car, her hands froze. The minister stepped out first. "Good afternoon, Lina," he said kindly. She greeted him respectfully, still surprised by his visit. "What brings you here, sir?" The older man smiled gently. "I came to ask for your help." Adrian slowly stepped out of the car behind him. For a moment, the two simply stared at each other. The confident young man Lina once knew looked different now. His usual pride was gone, replaced with something softer, something uncertain. He walked closer until he stood in front of her. Then something happened that shocked everyone watching. Adrian dropped to his knees. "Lina." "I'm sorry," he said quietly. She blinked in disbelief. "I mocked you. I disrespected you. I treated you like you didn't matter," he continued. "But you were the only person who ever treated me like a normal human being." The small crowd gathering nearby whispered in amazement. "I didn't understand your worth until you left," Adrian said, his voice shaking slightly. "And now I know that losing you was the biggest mistake of my life." Lina remained silent, absorbing his words. Then he said something no one expected. "Please, marry me." Gasps filled the air. Inside the mansion later that week, Adrian's mother nearly fainted when she heard the news. "Absolutely not," she shouted. "This will ruin our reputation." But Adrian stood firm. "For once in my life," he said calmly, "I'm choosing what is right instead of what looks good." His father supported him quietly, reminding his wife that respect and character mattered far more than social status. A few weeks later, a simple wedding ceremony was held. There were no extravagant decorations, no flashy displays of wealth. Just family, a respected religious leader, and two people standing side by side with sincere hearts. As Lina and Adrian exchanged their vows, something powerful settled over the moment. The arrogant young man who once humiliated a humble maid had transformed into someone willing to fight for love and humility. And Lina, the quiet girl from the village, had shown everyone that dignity and kindness could change even the hardest heart. Because in the end, one truth became clear to everyone who witnessed their story. Money can build the biggest mansion in the city. But only love, respect, and a pure heart can truly make it a home. Sometimes life teaches its greatest lessons through unexpected people. Pride may give someone power, but humility gives them wisdom. Lina never tried to change Adrian with anger or revenge, she simply remained true to her values. And in doing so, she awakened the better man hidden beneath his arrogance. This story reminds us that love built on respect and sincerity can break social barriers and heal wounded hearts. True happiness does not come from status or wealth, but from kindness, forgiveness, and the courage to grow. If you enjoyed this story, make sure you like, comment and share it with your friends, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel and click the notification button so that if a new video is uploaded you will be the first to be notified. Tell us what you learned in the comments below.